Howdy, howdy, delicious people. I'm here to review Fist of the North Star from 1986. I had gone on and watched this animated movie and realized that there was also to be a live action film, an anime series. So at some certain point, I'm sure a lot of people can go on and say whatever their favorites of this is if they were to ever even gone on and heard of it. I was to have gone on and just stumbled upon a list of comic book and manga titles, and I had found this one, and I was like, okay, uh, for some reason, this name just kind of came up somewhere while I was watching some anime at some point, and they had talked about the Fist of the North Star. And then also, I remember like the Minnesota North Stars and everything like that. So I was like, okay, like this could just be an interesting bit of content to just check out. So for this movie, we would come to find a character known as Ken, who it seems between his brothers are to be jockeying position to want to keep this title of Fist of the North Star. We have guys like Rao, who is so confused that since he is to be so powerful, why doesn't he just go on and get the title? We have certain other people like Jaggy that are to go on and are to pretend to even be Ken and to really just have Jaggy take his own throne and uh, go on and say that he is also to be the Fist of the North Star. We have guys like Shin who had gone on to taken Julia from Ken, and really all that Shin really wanted was just Julia, and that was it. And Julius did not really go on and give in to Shin, as whenever he is to go on and give her jewelry, she's just like, well, all of this is just to be wasted on me. So, further through this film, we would go on to find that this is to all just be this kind of kung fu journey of sorts, where people would be fighting and using these puncture points. And that I thought was the most interesting and unique thing about this film. That was like, okay, I've never really seen much of martial arts films that would use like the puncture point things. Like I've probably seen Ninja Assassin, where the guy goes on and he thrusts his hands into the guy's ribs and then goes on to make the guy in agony for a week. Or we realize that Batman supposedly would go on and fight people with puncture points. But anyways, we have in this story a character known as Ken, who we would believe is the Fist of the North Star. And eventually he is to be beaten down by Shin and then thrown off a cliff to be left for dead. And he is to go on and be buried, it seems. All of a sudden, out of one day's occurrence of Jen going on to find this girl named Lynn, who is this mute girl that only he can hear. Ken ends up getting resurrected and going on to face off all of these thugs, and then start to realize that what he is to be really here for is to regain back his woman, who is Julia, and regain back the title of being the Fist of the North Star Undisputed, to where he goes on and faces off all his brothers and goes on to uh, kind of make everything right again. In the very beginning of this movie, they also go on, they talk about the yin and yangs of things, the light and the dark, and all this other kind of stuff. Uh, they talk about how this world had gone through a nuclear holocaust, and eventually we'll see this kind of nuclear blast that has looked very similar to like Terminator 2, where Sarah Connor is slapping the fence, and all of a sudden the nuclear blast happens, and she is in the radius of this blast, and she's getting skin and clothing to all be dusted off of her. and all that is to be left is really just a skeleton, and so on and so forth. Very interesting visual there. So to see that this is to become an Earth planet of just a desolate wasteland, and there is to have been no flowers, no plants, no nothing blooming up until a certain point of this film, where they are to go on and find these seeds, when given to certain specific people, are to have a possible chance that will give us our trees back, will give us our uh, grass back, will give us uh, our forests. So this movie is to kind of remember or remind me of a number of things. Immediately, it reminds me of like obviously Mad Max, just the way just Ken looks. But then also is to remind me, of course, stuff like Mortal Kombat's, even stuff like Bruce Lee. When I've gone on and seen a plethora of Bruce Lee films, I'm to look like Ken feels very much like a Bruce Lee like character to me, as well as also the way he shouts while he's fighting just sounds like Bruce Lee. So I was to go on and find this movie to be rather visually interesting with the whole once you puncture somebody, they all of a sudden have their face or their body parts start to swell and they explode. All the more reason for me to want to go on and check this out. We also have at one point where guys like Ray are to use his kind of like chopping technique to just slice through people as if he is a armed bladed man, it seems. But anyways, there is also a lot of technical jargon that I had to kind of figure out and research here, so I hope that this is going to actually go on and be worth it to have talked about. Because honestly, there is to be the Seed Gang, the Biker Gang, the Rao Army, the number of characters that I have to go on and just figure out what the heck their names are throughout this whole entire thing. So I hope at the end of the day, all of this will eventually go on and at some point be worth it. But with that said, hopefully people will go on and let me know in the comments below what is to be your favorite Fist of the North Star if you are to be a fan of this. If you are to go on like the live action movies or the anime, or if you just like this film. But if anything, also hopefully people will go on and let me know what is to be their favorite anime or animated project, because I have gone on and seen a plethora of different anime in my time, as well as also to of course go on and to have seen some animated movies and shows that aren't exactly anime, but regardless, I had seen those as well. Where can you go on and see Fist of the North Star? Because I had gone on and enjoyed this film. I thought it was a okay. No, I'll say it was a good film. Good film, solid good film. I really didn't exactly understand exactly the world of things. Um, but regardless, I thought that this story was good enough, it was entertaining enough, and it was simplistic, I guess, enough to just enjoy how it was to all play out. Because it kind of goes on and feels like the Super Mario story, where we have Princess Peach and she's stuck in a tower, and Bowser is kind of keeping her there. So Mario has to go on and rescue her. It's kind of like that kind of story in some ways. Uh, of approach of Ken needing to go on and re-getting back his woman Julia. So with that said, I like this movie. It's good. Where can you go on and see this? It's available on YouTube right now. It's an English dubbed version on YouTube right now. You can check it out there. It's not as a crisp as a playthrough, but regardless, you can see it there. Also, I'll give you an app if you have a mobile device and you have a Google Play Store. You can go on through an app called Moopzy, Moopzzi, and you can go on and find this movie Fist of the North Star as well as other bits of Fist of the North Star content uh, to go on and check out. It'll more than likely need to go and click into the screen once you get in the movie and go through the source part of this and adjust to get to the dubbed part. And I kind of had to click back and forth into it a couple times to then get to the dub thing, but you can get it on dub and watch it there, and it'll be a little bit crisper there. So that's to be the more reason to suggest this thing. And then other than that, there is also anime apps that I do bootleggingly have also, like Anime Go Go or Anime Prime or whatever the heck slapping of title this will go on and actually be uh, for whatever the anime app is to actually go on and be. But I go on and I use Anime Go Go for a lot of stuff. I think there is another title. It has a more strange name, but if anything, I'm just gonna suggest Anime Go Go or Anime Prime or like but they went through a kind of a rung of different kind of names for this app. But they're in fact, anyways. Uh, with that said, let's go on and let's just push on to just break down this movie because it's gonna be a lot longer to break down this film than it is to go on and just talk about it in a very generic sense. Uh, Furthermore, um, future projects. I'm still trying to go on and still try to do a lot of horror projects right now. If anything, there's kind of been a litany of things that I've gone on to state that I will do, and I hope to still do them. It's just taking longer than I thought they would go to actually get them accomplished because things just keep randomly being found in my way. I'll go on and say that I still want to go on and watch Escape Room from 2019. There's a bunch of kind of escape movies that I think I can go on and watch and enjoy, and at least it'll be something different than I've kind of been doing on the channel. I'm still kind of tempted to go on and watch the movie Society, and to also go on and watch uh, just kind of other horror projects because of course considering it is to be the time of the year it is, but this one was really just to be like, hey, this is an anime thing, and it's been such a long time since I've done that, and this is to have quite a bit of gore. And oh, also for those of you that are to go on and uh, end up getting seizures because of just strobe lighting or things of that nature. Like definitively, when watching this movie, I'm like, man, there's a lot of bright lights going on here that are to go on and really mess with my brain, or also just kind of mess with my eyesight because I get just migraines from lighting. So there was certain occurrences of which that I was kind of like, okay, maybe I should just wear like a blue light pair of glasses or just some sunglasses while watching this movie, just because of the lighting thing. But other than that, like I think I was pretty much fine throughout a good chunk of this film to watch it really without any kind of glasses or whatever. But anyways, yeah. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, I think it's about that time to say that it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this movie. Uh, Go ahead and comment anything you like down below because if anything, it does help out the channel. It's helped me know that people exist out there, as well as also it does help if you have any seemingly bit of information upon this world that I am to be seemingly not quite exactly aware of. Um, because logically, I'm sure that people have seen the anime or seen any number of things of or read the manga and have a lot bit of information of logically what this world is about. Bit of anything. Let's go on and let's uh, get into the spoilers of this. So I'm gonna pause this here, get out my character list, not my cast list, because it's a completely different animal, and go on and get every visual and everything that I can go on and be able to get together to talk about this film. I'm going to, as much as possible, condense this movie down to try to make this project a lot shorter than probably what it actually is to be. Simply because I thought, honestly, the way this story is, like, it's would probably be better to not have to go through and say who says every little bit of everything because most of this movie is, I think, more dialogue heavy than anything else. Because the fighting can just be easily uh, described, but like if anything, the more dialogue part could easily just be more skipped. Uh, Anyways, so let's pause here. Let's get all my stuff out, and we'll get into the review or the recap or whatever this part of this review everyone goes on and thinks that this part is to actually be. But hopefully you'll go on and you'll have enjoyed this video for however length it actually is to go on and be. Because you may go on, you may jump off at this point. I completely understand. But thank you for watching this video, and thank you for however long you are to have been a person viewing this, because I do appreciate it, and I hope that people will go on and find this video to go on and be helpful for them to go on and find this project or be able to uh, like find a bit of content that they can enjoy and like and whatever. And that's all that I really wanted to go on here and do this for, which is to help people just find things for content to watch or to have been a fan of this. I'm like, oh yeah, like I like this too. I'm like, okay, cool. So we can have something to relate on. But if anything, let's pause this here. All right. So the very beginning of this has our narrator who goes on and talks about the opposites and the lights and the darks and the yins and the yangs. And we then go on and see the normal planet Earth that all of a sudden is to be uh, put through a nuclear holocaust. Because we would go on and see the normal mountains and trains and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, the next thing we see would be these nuclear blasts going on upon the planet. And then we'll see people uh, who are to have gone on and gotten their skin and their skeleton and their clothes and everything just kind of disintegrated off of them because again nuclear blast. Uh, we would go on to see the decimation of this town, and eventually we'll go on and see if there's a battleship that is to be thrusted in to a skyscraper, giving us this really interesting visual here, showcasing that the only hope of this planet going forward is to be a little girl named Lynn, it seems, as they focus on her. And it seems that we come to find that this girl Lynn is to be a mute, so she doesn't talk. So the next thing we see is both Jen and both Ken here, and or Julia and Ken here. They're going on and talking about how this is such a desolate wasteland, and all of a sudden, as the two of them uh, are just continuing to walk through this rocky rubble, there all of a sudden is to be these two lines forming of the king or kingsmen that are to be the army that is to be connected to Shin. Shin walks up to Ken and is like, well, hey, with the way that times are right now, if anything, it's all about strength and possessions. And if anything, Shin goes on and grabs Julia's arm and wants to go on and possess Julia. And Ken is like, well, what the heck? So Shin is going on and saying, like, well, hey, I don't want to harm you, but, like, I want your girl. So realizing that this is going to be forcing both Ken and Shin into a confrontation, they're going on, they're realizing how maddening this is, that Shin is going to have to go on and fight Ken right now because of how much they are brothers and how much it seems that they want to really keep the balance, and that really this is a face-off between both North and South here. And so Ken goes on to face off against Shin, and what ends up happening is that Ken goes on, and right in between his forearm and his bicep, the little gap in between, right by the elbow here, we would go on and have Shin uh, really bust open Ken's arm there, uh, in both arms, just right in between that gap there. And then we would come to find that Ken's knees will also be bleeding as well as he falls over. We have a guy named Jaggy who's to be very bandaged up, talking to Rao off in the distance, saying like, "Well, hey, it seems that Shin is going on and making an example of Ken here." The reason why both Jaggy and Rao are here is because Jaggy had gone on to specifically whisper sweet nothings into Shin's ear earlier, to go on and tell him, hey, like, you should go on and be able to become the Fist of the North Star. Hey, you should definitely go after Julia. Julia wants you. It seems that she doesn't show it, but she really does want you. Like, you should go after her. Come on, Shin. Go after and get what's yours. And so Jaggy will go on and be doing the same thing to Rao here to be like, well, hey, like, uh, Shin is going on and taking out Ken. Like, how about you go on, you collect what's yours? You really want so badly to be the Fist of the North Star. How about you go on out there and prove it? So, Rao does not go on and go in between this. If anything, he's just going, well, like, if anything, the Fist of the North Star right now is to be breathing. He's left alive. And if anything, the Fist of the North Star should not look as weak as he does. Uh, but if anything, let's backpedal a little bit here, because things are going to get worse for Ken. Uh, Shin lifts up Ken's head and tells him, like, well, obviously I've won and you've lost here. But if anything, I want to go on and I want to break your will. So Shin goes on and is to turn to Julia and says, like, well, hey, I want you to go on and I want you to tell me that you're going to be loyal to me and that you're going to be with me, heart, mind, and soul, and what have you. So, as Julius did not give in to this, we would then go on and have Shin, who is taking his fingers and he's thrusting them into Shin's chest, giving these holes through his chest continuously, even to the point where there's multiple fingers that are just going through Shin's chest. And Ken is, or yeah, Shin is going on and thrusting Ken's chest and puncturing Ken's body consistently here. It gets to the point as the more Ken suffers, Julia gives in and is a cry out that she is going to be loyal to Shin, and she's going to be loyal to him with all of her heart. So Shin is like, well, that's what I wanted to hear. And so Shin goes on and grabs Julia and leaves, leaving Ken in a bloody pulp. And so the next thing we see here after Rao leaves and again talks about how Ken is to be so weak here and and but he's still breathing. So it's like, well, what's the point of seeing how this all plays out because Ken is still alive? Ken goes on and has the seeds, as I believe Julia had given him this. And the next thing we see here is Jaggy lifting Ken up uh, over this cliff, and it's going to go on and throw him down it. And then it's going to go on and break a piece of the cliff so that way it buries him. Saying it's like, sleep well in hell, my brother. So the next thing we see here is Rao making his way to his wise man Rukin's dojo. we have Rao that is going on to Rukin and asking him, it's like, well, obviously you should give me the title of Fist of the North Star now. Like, Ken is basically dead. So, like, I should be easily the candidate who gets this title. And Rukin is like, well, here's the thing. Like, just because you have the strength that you have, if anything, there's other factors to you becoming the Fist in the North Star. You have to have precision. You have to have a number of things. There's a number of factors that'll go on and make it so that way you are to not actually be the Fist of the North Star. We have Rao that goes on and is looking at these two huge statues. He goes on and decimates them. He takes the heads of them and he crushes it underneath his arms. And as we would go on to have Rao do this, and he goes on and he takes part of the ceiling and he blasts it down and he does all these things. We still have Rukin that goes on to tell Rao here, it's like, well, whatever you're doing is kind of useless and has no real true value. So, yeah, like everything that you're trying to do here means nothing to me. So, Rao goes on and tells Rukin that he's an old fool, and then he goes off to a cliff. He's like, "Why am I not worthy of this power, of this title?" And like the gods need to go on and show me why exactly I am to not go on and have this power and have this title. And then all of a sudden we see within the skies, we see these planets that are aligning. We see this town to be lit by lightning, and I believe a nuclear bomb. I don't know, but if anything, we have Rao that is to go on and just kind of see this all occur. And so the next thing we see is a bunch of rando people who are all kind of pilgrimaging. They're going on this voyage. They're going on this walkabout. These random bits of people that are all going on, and they have like these sacks over their shoulder, and they're just walking to a possible next town because they've ran out of all their resources where they were. So now they're walking in a pilgrimage style to another patch of land. And they are to be interrupted by these raiders. They go on, and all of these pilgrimages or pilgrimed people go on and get attacked by these raiders or these outlaws or these bandits, and they all end up getting killed. The raiders go on and they make their way through these people's uh, stuff. They go on and they grab their shoes or they eat their beef jerkies. They go on and they open a briefcase up and it has a briefcase full of money. There's nothing they could really do with that. The next thing we see is both Lynn and Bart. They're on this doom buggy of a vehicle and they're driving to escape uh, this Zed gang. The Zed gang is to be led by a guy named Zender. And so the Zed gang is on these motorcycles and they're chasing after both Lynn and both Bart. It seems that Lynn is to possess some seeds, and that's why I guess they were to be chased after. So we have Bart and Lynn on their doom buggy, and they go flying off this bridge in to this skyscraper. They bash through this window, and they continue to make their way through this building. And eventually, at some point, one of the biker gang guys go or the Zed gang guys goes on and uses his leg and kind of bashes this vehicle and kind of takes the vehicle off course, and the vehicle goes on and I think starts to spin and just starts flying to where it goes out of control, to where then eventually Lynn and Bart separate from the vehicle. We have the Zed gang that goes on and starts to look through the vehicle's resources and then go on to find uh, the seeds. So as Bart and Lynn are stopping these guys from getting the seeds, we then have one of the gang grab Bart, and eventually, when Lynn is trying to stop one of uh, the gang member sees that Lynn is just kind of hanging uh, from this stick, and so as Lynn drops, the guy decides to like, well, I'm just gonna crush her like a freaking bug under my boot. So we go on to have Lynn, even though she's mute, she cries out in a frequency that it seems that can only be heard by one person and one person alone, and that's Ken. Ken all of a sudden appears out of nowhere as these skyscrapers fall around him, and at first he appears as this rock-like figure, as if he's Ben Grimm from the Fantastic Four. This rock-like structure starts to walk its way further and further to both Lynn and Bart. Then eventually, further and further, the rocks start to dissipate and fall away from a man who is just wearing a cloak. Ken is to be this man. He is to be very grizzled and disheveled, like we go on and we quite see here, but still has his cloak on. Ken makes his way to these gang members, and we have at one point where one of the gang members takes a arrow and hits it on to Ken. Ken takes the arrow. It's like, really? Flap. And then he goes on to take the guy who had shot him and crushes his head and kills him. As Ken is to dribble the blood off of his fingertips, we would start to have some of these gang members that start to take out their weapons and blades and things to go up against Ken. And Ken easily goes on to wipe them out, uh, elbowing them, hurting them in some capacity to where their head will swell and explode. We have Bart, who is looking at all this carnage as a severed uh, body that has lost his head has now to appear in front of Bart, freaking him out. And Ken goes on to then carry uh, Lynn up until a point where she walks off on her own. Bart and Ken make their way to some shelter, and the two of them go on to start talking about Lynn, about the reason why she is mute is because her family had been killed. And I believe she had gone on to see it, and that's why she had gone on to become mute. So Ken is going to go on and hope that there is a way for him to be able to help Lynn. And eventually, when he is to go on and give her this seed, uh, eventually she will start to shake out of this. And also he ends up going on and he ends up kind of doing something with his power to kind of give her the ability to want to talk again. But anyways, so uh, Ken goes on to find out that Lynn is to seemingly be in trouble again as Zender and the rest of his gang arrive to get their way to this doom buggy because they know at least what that looks like. So Ken is realizing that Lynn is in trouble, so he makes his way bashing through this door to reunite with Lynn, who is to be uh, grabbed by Zender and to be hoisted above his head. So we of course have Ken here that is telling Zender to put the girl down, and Zender goes on to say this like, "Oh yeah, I'll put her down when I break her neck." And so Ken goes on and he is to kick this bit of concrete that goes flying into Zender's mouth. He goes on and he chews it and he eats it, and then there's this one little metal piece that he kind of like, poof, and he spits out. So Ken is like, well, okay, all right. So Like, I guess we're gonna have to fight this out. So as Ken goes on and he makes his way to Zender, we'll come to find that the Z gang comes around him and starts to face off against him, and they pull away at his cloak to reveal who he is. If we had any questions of this not being Ken or not, and eventually Ken goes on and starts beating these guys up to where, of course, they go on and they start swelling up and exploding and getting killed here. So Ken goes on and starts annihilating this gang to a certain point to where one of the gang members ends up splatting onto Zender's body in a bloody mess and just sliding down. It's kind of funny. So we have Ken who starts to just kind of take his hands and starts to and it's like, all right, okay, just kind of time to go to work. So Ken goes on. It's like, okay, like if you're not gonna go on and you're not gonna bring the girl down, then Ken goes on and he ends up becoming Super Saiyan, and his shirt and vest will rip off. His his wristbands or his wraps on his arms will uh, fall off his or disintegrate off his body. Ken will become shirtless, and then all of a sudden will go on to start having a barrage of fists that are all hitting Zender. One fist goes into his forehead, and we see a huge hole presented there. Zen ends up falling down. Immediately once that happens, Lin goes flying into Ken's arms. As Zender gets back up after this is going to happen, Zender is like, well, hey, when normally I fight somebody, I fight to the death. And Ken is like, oh, well, so do I. And then Zender's like, oh, and then like his head ends up going on and exploding, and he ends up dying here. So shortly thereafter this, after the town, whoever is to be able to witness this sight, uh, eventually is to go on and realize, oh my god, like this is the Fist of the North Star. Like this is this guy. This is Ken. Oh my god. So Ken goes on and he's basically like Hugh Jackman from Australia. He goes on and takes this water barrel and pours it over his body. And then he goes on to finally shave his face to be more clean shaven. So Ken goes on and cures Lynn of her being a mute, and then starts to walk off after giving her the seed to plant. So Bart goes on and starts talking, and then notices that Lynn chimes in, and then he's like, "Oh my god, you can talk now!" So the next thing we see here is a individual with a pink cloak facing off against Nana Chuka. Um, Nana Nana Chaku, I think is his name. This guy with his nunchucks, it looks like nunchucks, but then again, like the way he whips these nunchucks off, it looks like it's a weapon that's a nunchuck but has a chain in it. Also, it's kind of interesting looking, just the way this nunchuck weapon looks. But if anything, uh, this cloaked individual will go on to be revealed to be Ray. And as this pink cloak goes away, we have Nanachaku, who's like, well, hey, like I thought you were a woman at first. So the two of them go on and face off here as the nunchuck man goes on to thrust his way to go up against Ray here. And Ray goes on and is to kind of use this certain motion of his hands to where we see the lines of where he had gone to within the uh, the radius of where he is. So eventually we'll go on and we'll see later that when Ray fights people, he like chops them up pretty good. And I'm like, God dang. And also we kind of see that here with Nanachaku, who ends up losing both of his arms, and Ray throws it back at him, and so Ray goes on and tells this guy, "Hey, before you bleed to death, like I have a question. Where's the Fist of the North Star? Where's this guy that I'm looking for?" Um, so we now have back at this town that Ken is making his way to. There's a guy named Fox, and he next to him has a statue that we are supposed to believe that it's of the Fist of the North Star, or it's to be the lord of this town. So supposedly this statue is supposed to be of Ken, the Fist of the North Star, but we'd find out otherwise, that it's actually Jaggy that is to have a helmet on that is to wear similar attire to, of course, Ken in a way. But anyways, so we have people in this town kind of being very difficult. They're not willing to go on and praise and bow to this statue. So Fox takes it upon himself to force one of the people there to chop off the head of another. And it seems that once this person has a difficult time going about doing this process of chopping this guy's head off, they then go on and they kill him instead. Uh, Shortly thereafter that, we have Ray that makes his way into the town and starts to talk to the people there. And he goes on to ask him, it's like, well, hey, have any of you heard of the seven wounded man? Uh, so the biker gang member that is with Fox goes on to look at Ray here and is like, well, hey, since this guy didn't bother to have gone on and killed this man and chopped his head off, how about I give this blade to you and you'll go on and you'll kill him? So Ray goes on and takes his blade, is like, oh, okay. And then immediately what he goes on and does is he takes the blade and he shoves it into this guy's head, and then he cuts in this guy's head and kills him. So that realizes that what side Ray is really on. So following up that, Ray starts to slice through all of these biker gang members to lead to the confirmation, or the to lead to uh, the conclusion here that Ray, after he faces off against all these men, there is to only just be Fox that is to be left to just go, hey, like, uh, take me to your boss, uh, like the seven wounded man who's the Fist of the North Star, like, take me to him. And conveniently, as Fox is to kind of gear up for a fight here, we would all of a sudden come to find that Ken is to appear right behind Fox and is to go on and be curious about the statue that looks very much like him, but it isn't. So, who's the guy that the statue is to go on and be made of? And then Ken goes on and is to kill Fox and destroy the statue. And since both Ken and both Ray, it seems, have the same goal, they end up quickly teaming up together. They end up becoming the best of friends. But anyways, now we go to Jaggy's palace. It seems that he's getting his shoes buffered by Ali or Ali. I'm gonna go with Ali. It sounds in my brain to be the thing that works for me to figure out who this person is. Um, Ali goes on is wiping the boots, and Jaggy goes on and says to Ali, "It's like, well, hey, you better clean my boots really well. Or you're gonna be licking them." So we have Ray and we have Ken, and the two of them are going on, and they're going to say here that they're going to be joining forces because Ray needs to go on and find the guy who has his sister, and supposedly, I believe Ali's or Ali was supposed to get married or something along those lines, and just things just didn't turn out. If I'm wrong about that, you can correct me in the comments, but I think something like that was going to happen. But so Ken, it seems, is willing to go on and work with Ray here, but eventually we'll come to find as soon as they get uh, to um, Raggy here or Jaggy here, that eventually they'll turn on one another. But we'll get to that here in shortly. So Jaggy here goes on and he takes his helmet off and he goes to sleep. And there's a flashback of Ken and Jaggy together. Jaggy then goes on and puts his double barrel shotgun to Ken's face, and Ken swats it away. Ken goes on and is to punch into Jaggy's face multiple times, and all of a sudden, Jaggy's face loses half of its hair and then starts to swell and starts to look very deformed and very ugly. Jaggy to go on and try to like protect this head from swelling too much, and then Jaggy dying because of that. Jaggy goes on and has this like metal uh, thing just kind of attached to his face, and then he further goes on, and that's the reason why he has the helmet on, so that way he can go on and keep the swelling down so he won't die. So, and then of course Jaggy has a flashback of killing Ken, throwing him off that cliff. So Lynn and Bart are to be back on their doom buggy, and we see that Lynn had planted the flower, and we start to see a little bit of it, a tiny smidgen of it. So a guy named Jackal makes his way to see Jaggy's face, and as soon as he sees it, he starts to get sick and he wants to barf. Jaggy ends up getting upset with the fact that Jackal had went on to look at his face. So Jaggy goes on and kills Jackal because it's like, well, hey, uh, like you have no respect for me, so I'm just gonna kill you. So the next thing we see here is both Ken and Ray making their way to, uh, of course, Jaggy's palace. Uh, da, da, do, um, Jaggy meets up with Ali, and they're talking about how it seems that Ali will come to find some usefulness after all, as all she's kind of done is just these. Let me adjust here. Has kind of just been doing these just kind of common, just uh, like bootlicking like activities. So Ken goes on and crashes through this wall and meets a big, huge stomach in his way. that big huge stomach is a guy named Hart. Hart will go on and state that he's the bodyguard of Jaggy, and Ken's not getting through him. So we have Ken that goes on and starts to uh, do some punches and some kicks to Hart's chest. Yeah, a hole ends up being done here, but then that hole will go on and get just uh, re suctioned back out. And like, nah, you did nothing. So Ken goes on and tries to hit more, tries to hit harder, um, tries to make the area of which that he hit bigger, to where there's seemingly more kind of pressure to be done uh, on Hart's chest. And then we have Hart, who is to go on and kind of take his skin and just start to kind of move and adjust it. Just like, well, you did nothing. So the further and further that Ken starts to continue to beat down this guy, eventually we'll get to the point to where Hart goes on, he freaking explodes, and it's like, well, I guess that did work after all. So I guess just consistently just beating this guy's chest or beating this guy's tummy just finally worked. So they make their way into the palace, and so Ray goes on and he sees his sister off in the distance, and Ali has no seemingly remembering of Ray. When the further of them talk together at some point, she's like, I don't know who you are. And also, Ray doesn't even know that Ali is blind here. And eventually we'll have Jaggy that goes on to tell Ray, yeah, she's blind now because you don't know that, but now we do. Or now you do. So Jaggy goes on and offers Ali to uh, to Ray only if he goes on and kills Ken here. As Jaggy at this point has a gun, a double barrel shotgun, to Ali's head, and is to say, hey, yeah, if you go on and you kill my brother, I'll go on and I'll give you this girl. Yeah, I'll give you your sister back. Sure. So Ray then turns on Ken here. It's like, well, hey, I thought we were I thought we were teaming up here. Well, I guess that team up had lasted as briefly as it could. Don't worry, everybody. Ray is not going to get killed here because eventually he'll probably end up getting killed later on between Rao. Uh, anyways, so because we don't like I think at some point like we don't ever see him again as he goes on and he talks to Ken. Uh, and talks to him about like, well, hey, like you need to go on and you need to think about your children, the innocents, everybody that's around here. Uh, but anyways, back to this moment. So Ray starts to use his attacks, and then Ken counters it, and so Ken, after going on like, hey man, like we're not gonna fight. Ken goes back and focuses uh, on Jaggy, and so Jaggy's like, well, okay, all right, well, uh, like it's good that Ray didn't go on and take you out because if anything, it would have robbed me the pleasure of killing you myself. So Ken and Jaggy make their way up to this rooftop that is this like helicarrier, and the two of them square off there. We have Jaggy that takes off his helmet and shows the disfigurement that Ken had delivered to him. And we have Jaggy putting his helmet back on. Jaggy goes on and gives multiple fist blows, and Ken seems to dodge them and punches Jaggy in the face, having him fly back. We have a point to where Jaggy's going like, well, hey, since I have this double barrel shotgun, I'm going to go on and just blast Ken with this, and I'll defeat him this way. All of a sudden, we would have Jaggy that turns his own gun on him, and we have Ken that says like, well, yeah, I guess you're having a problem right now with muscle control. Well, maybe you should go on and just thrust that double barrel shotgun away from you. And once he goes on and does that, the double barrel shotgun blasts and it hits this pipe. This pipe starts leaking this gasoline. Jackie realizes that there could be a strategy here. Jackie jumps back and is to grab this lighter and flip it on and says, well, hopefully you're fireproof. And uh, he chucks the lighter into the gasoline and this whole thing explodes. But neither Jackie nor Ken end up getting hurt from this. We have Jackie that goes on to explain the whispering of sweet nothings that he did to Shin, trying to get him to go on and go after Julia and Ken to get possibly the Fist of the North Star title. So Jaggy is to say that yeah, he manipulated Shin to do what he couldn't, but he hopes now that he can actually go on and kill his brother. So we have Jen, or we have Ken. I keep saying Jen. My apologies. We have Ken here that goes on to become Super Saiyan. He goes on to have him glow, and the further he glows, the powerful he gets. To the point where all of a sudden, the area of which that they are surrounded by starts to crumble and things start to fall. Ken makes his way to Jaggy, and as he does, within the rubble of them to have fallen through, Jaggy goes on and starts to use these boulders and these rocks the best that he can to chuck them at Ken, and it does nothing. Ken no sells this. We even have a point where Jaggy thrusts this rock and it hits directly into Ken's forehead. It falls. Ken's forehead is to be bleeding, but he's like, come on. Like, Ken goes on and equally punches Jaggy in the face, destroying Jaggy's helmet. And the next thing we end up seeing is, since now Jaggy's helmet and thing that was keeping the metal pieces of his face kind of held together is just now destroyed here. So as Jaggy's head now starts to swell and starts to rip open and starts to bleed, Jaggy goes on to tell Ken about the location of Julia, who's to be at Shin's place by the Southern Cross. And we go on to have the admitting of the loss and to realize who is to really be the Fist of the North Star between the two of these people here, as Jaggy had gone on to just die when his head explodes. Ray goes on to finish up uh, the rest of the biker gang here, cuts through them and kills them, eventually reuniting between him and his sister. As Ray goes on and starts talking to his sister, she goes on and realizes, oh, you must be my new master. I'll go on and I'll please you in any way you want. she drops to her knees, and Ray's like, like, I don't think this visual is going to bode well here, folks. So we have Ken, Ray, and Ailey reunite here, and Ray is hoping that Ken will have some kind of something for him to, if he had changed Lynn being mute before, then maybe he could change Lynn losing her sight. And Ken is like, yeah, there's honestly nothing that I can do here because if anything, um, Ali here losing her sight was really just in her own mind. If anything, she could probably see at any moment, but she just decides not to. So Ken walks away here, and here's where he gets like a flash, I believe, of Julia. Ken is to go and realize, oh, like this is the thing that I'm next to do. This is like next on my bucket list to try to accomplish here. So Ken goes on to notice both Bart and Lynn on their doom buggy, and Ken goes on and realizes that Lynn has the flower. So it's like, hell, maybe the flower will go on and be the changing of the tide. So Ken, Bart, and Lynn make their way back to Ray and Ali here. So Lynn goes on and is to give Ali the flower to show her, and Ali can't believe there could be actually a real flower. That, uh, if anything, like she could not believe that this could be possible. So Ali touches the plant and then opens her eyes and realizes that the flower is there and that it is very beautiful. And she goes on and cries into Lynn's arms, and then they would, of course, figure out it's like, okay, we cured her of her blindness now. The next thing we go on and see here is Rao with his army of just Rao's army. There's nothing more than that. We go on to see like a litany of disheveled vehicles. We go on and see people on horseback, everything in between here. So Rao is making his way to Boss Fang to face off against him. So we now have Shin, who's at his palace, making his way to Julia. As he makes his way to Julia, he goes on to notice how beautiful she is, but sadly enough, there is a litany of jewels that is to be by her feet. And he's like, man, why are you going on and not wanting to take anything of gifts that I give to you? If anything, any woman would want these things, and you just don't. And Julia just realizes that all these jewels are to all be a waste because she is not to be given the one thing that she actually wants, and that actually is Ken. She doesn't care about these fruitful things like jewelry and nice dresses and things of that nature. So, really just saying that all of these things are really just meaningless, anyways. So, Julia leaves the throne here and walks off. And Shin goes on and follows her. The two of them are looking outside of this window and talking about uh, talking about the Earth and the graveyard that is to be called a city, and that this is all to just be left as a barren uh, ball of rock called the planet, and so on and so forth. We're kind of going on into the weeds here of just them uh, saying how there's no future here, and yeah, like we get into this whole bit of dialogue here. It's a huge lot of waste in all honesty. But I just briefly kind of skimmed over it anyways. So Ken Ken and Ray uh, are at a bonfire here. So Ken goes on and he talks about Julia as kind of his next goal here, and going on and talking about how Julia likes to go on and wants everything green again, and uh, and and um so Rao goes on and he fights against Boss Fang here. And it actually looks really interesting how like Fang's army is, because they look like cavemen, or they look like kind of Wolverine-esque. Like it looks really cool for the visuals of the other boss's army. But if anything, I think Rao's army looks kind of like kind of foot soldiery like too. So it's pretty interesting. So we have Boss Fang that goes on this little uh, kind of radio to go on and tell Rao, uh, "Hey, give up while you can." uh, Every one of your men shall die, I promise. So we have Rao that doesn't go on and give up here. If anything, it's like, hey, uh, Ugo or whatever weird goofy name that you have, um, go on and send the men out there. So we have Boss Fang that turns his body into steel, his whole entire body skin into steel. And as he starts to thrust his way through the Rao army, it's like he's swatting off flies. He's basically going on and he's just walking through these people. And as he's walking through these people, they're just smashing into him and they're just getting crushed. So Boss Fang is to have blood just spewing all over him uh, through this Rao army. And so as Rao goes face to face with uh, Boss Fang, Boss Fang goes on and takes his blade and goes on to try and make his way to Rao, and the blade breaks. So we would go on to still have Boss Fang think that he's going to win this battle here. But what really goes on and happens is a blast ends up happening that pushes Boss Fang back, and then all of a sudden, Boss Fang starts to get this welts even through his steel, because his steel is now shattered now, and we find out shortly thereafter that Boss Fang dies. Uh, Julie and Shin go on and meet up with the captain. The captain goes on to give news about Jaggy being killed, and then also having us realize that Ken is still alive. Julie is to go on and be shocked by this news, so she thrusts into her room so she can go on and take off uh her fine dress and her necklace to then go on and get into her street clothes so she can get the heck out of there, because she's going to go on and try to escape. As she goes on and tries to escape through this door and tries to open it, she would immediately come to find that Rao is to be right in front of her. Because, of course, Rao is going for uh, Shin next. Oh, also, Julia had gone through this like unabandoned subway underground, and that's how she got to eventually try and escape. Also, uh, once they go on and Shin finds out that Julia had gone to escape, he turns to his captain and says to him, "Hey, you need to find Julia." And since the captain is kind of dealing with their defenses getting penetrated, the captain turns to Shin is like, well, hey, we have more pressing matters. And Shin goes on and immediately kills the captain and then turns to the lieutenant. It's like, well, hey, you're in charge now. Take 10 men and do what I say. Or take 100 men uh, and do what I say. So we inevitably go on and lead to the battle between both Shin and both Rao here. The two of them meet together, and it's kind of interesting how at one point that Shin goes on and talks about this ancient Greek story that he had not exactly finished, but he knew of. But it seems that this situation is going to be very fitting of that story. So the two of them go on to fight here, and then quick cutaway to Ken, who's walking. Ken goes on and makes his way to Shen's palace. And as he looks around, there is a number of Rao soldiers that are all to be killed, and a number of people that are all to just go on and and be. There's a number of chaos. There's buildings that are on fire, carnage in its wake. So Ken goes on and makes his way to Ken's palace, and as soon as he gets there, Shin is sitting on his throne, and behind him is to be the wedding dress that Julia was supposed to wear at his wedding. So Shin goes on and says to Ken, it's like, oh, Ken, how nice to meet you. It's nice to see you again. Uh, where have you been? Kind of just the introduction of things. So uh, Ken goes on and like, well, hey, I'm not in the mood, and it's like, well, either way, like we're just gonna go about this. So we would go on to have the two of them fight, and we have Shin that I think tries to go on an attack, but Ken ends up punching him in the face. We have at one point where Shin is going on and trying to do these chops, these multiple chops, and Ken grabs Shin's arm and eventually punches him multiple times into the chest, right in the pecs. And Shin falls down, starts to have blood come out of his mouth, and we realize that Shin is going to lose here. Shin goes on and kind of says that he's kind of at a weakened state, anyways, because he had just fought Rao. Here is where Shin goes on to explain the wedding dress, and he goes on to say, yeah, this would have been Julia's wedding dress, um, but she was to never go on and warm up to me. Like, if only once she would have just like loved me, like that's all of this would have been worth. But Shin never got that. So Shin is to sadly die here without ever the love of Julia, and that is to be the one thing that really does go on and defeat Shin more so than Ken honestly does. So now we have Bart and Lynn and Ray, and they're in the little Doom buggy, and they're making their way through town. We go on and have a man who has a loudspeaker that is telling everybody to shout King Rao within this town because Shin has been defeated here. So, via horseback, we have Rao making his way through town with his army and with his trusty sidekick. And when Rao makes his way through the crowd of people, we would go on to have Lynn, Bart, and Ray thrust through the crowd, and Lynn goes on and falls over and gets on all fours. Rao and Lynn have like an eye to eye kind of look at one another, and the next thing that Lynn, Bart, and Ray focus on is to try and help Julia escape after this. Uh, so we'll find Julia has gone on to a prison cell, and uh, Rao will go on and be waiting. Because he's like, well, man, everything that I've accomplished, I should be dubbed the conqueror. Uh, I've eliminated every single one of my enemies, and in everything that I have succeeded in, blah 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 blah. Yeah, so Rao is going on and just kind of waiting for something to happen. He's just kind of waiting for his next challenge. So Ray, Bart, and Lynn are all kind of eating these canned goods, and they're trying to figure out how to get to Julia. Bart goes on and is to think, well, wait a minute. Like, I think for every bit of way that you can get into a prison, there's always a secret. And Bart goes on and is to think, like, well, obviously this place must have a water source. So he starts to go on and starts to map things out. And eventually they'll go on and they'll find this sewer. They go underneath the sewer and they start making their way into finding this door. They can't open the door, and Lynn ends up going on and finding this little crevice for the two of them, both Bart and Lynn, to crawl through. And Lynn and Bart make their way to Julia. They give Julia this flower, and when they do that, there seems to be this kind of really bright number of lights that are all to appear from this flower. Julia goes on and takes the flower and she hugs it, and Julie is kind of sad at this point because she realizes the two of them are here and the flower is here. More than likely, also, Ken is here. And if Ken gets here, more than likely he will die. And that's what kind of worries Julia, that Ken will probably die uh, when meeting against Rao. So Rao comes to find Julia in her cell and realizes she has this flower, and immediately he hates the fact that she has this flower, so he's going to go on and he's going to crucify her and hold her up very high up into the sky. This crucifixion thing is like, this cross is freaking huge, huge. So Julia is to be punished here, and they tell everyone in the crowd about the flower, and they're punishing her for it. And here is where Ray appears. Ray goes on and he wants to face off against Rao. And Rao wants nothing to do with Ray. Because like, dude, I'm just gonna backhand you. Like, you're nowhere as powerful as my brothers. You're just some schlub that just knows how to chop up some folks. So, like whatever. Like, so Rao just turns to his second command, Oogle. God, I believe that's his name. Because it's weirdly pronounced, and I'm sure I'm butchering it. Um, yeah, it's Oogle. Cause yeah, it's like Uygle. Maybe somebody can correct me the pronunciation of that. Because also this is a certain title of sorts, which is anime, so I'm probably ill pronouncing it. So people can correct me in the comments below. Because that'll be a comment that'll help out this video anyways. But regardless, whoops. Um, I hit that by accident. So Oogle goes on. It's like, all right, like I'll try to take down this guy. So Oogle has these whips, faces off against Ray. The whips end up getting cut, and so we go on to have Ray. It's like, come on, can you give me something worthy to fight? Like, come on, Rao. Like, and Oogle goes on and he is to take the horns from out of his helmet and he starts to pull them out. And once he does that, both of these horns at the end of them will have these whips, multiple whips, that are within the ends of these horns. So he goes on and he like lashes all of these whips to go up against Ray, and Ray turns around and uses his technique to slice through Oogle and take him down. Ray then turns his attention more to Rao. It's like, all right, like you and me, we're the only ones left here. So Ray goes on and tells Rao, it's like, well, hey, if you're gonna fight me, how about you dismount off your horse? And Rao's like, no, I don't need to dismount my horse to beat you. I don't need to bother. Like, off. Like, no. So Ray is just like, well, okay then, all right. So Ray goes on and he tries to attack Rao here. And for every attack that Ray tries to use, Rao swats him away like a fly, just beats him down again without really leaving his horse. So Ken is to start walking his way through these dismantled buildings, and while Ray is continuing to still be fighting here, continuing to be using his hands and having all this blue light that is to be surrounding him at this point. And as Ray gets closer and closer to Rao here, yeah, Rao is gonna go on and clock freaking Ray. Ray falls over, Ray starts bleeding, and Ken finally appears. Uh, Ken goes on to make his way to Ray's body as he's kind of like grabbing him, kind of just on the like, come on, man, you can make it. I was dead 20 seconds ago. You're still alive. So now Ken is looking at Rao. It's like, all right, like you hurt my best friend. So as Ken starts to leave, Ray grabs him. It's like, hey, no, don't go. Uh, like you can go now. You can leave with Julia. You can have babies. You like think of your children. Think of the innocence. Uh, think of what you could do with the rest of your life instead of going on and facing off against Rao. Like, come on, Ken. Don't do this. Don't fight between the two of you. Also, honestly, when the two of them fight against one another, good God. Like, the further and further that they fight, the more energy balls that they just glow, and like it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point of us going on and assuming here that uh that feasibly that this fight is just going to end with like the planet just exploding. That's what I was to kind of assume was going to happen with this fight. That like the whole planet was going to just get destroyed all over again because of this fight. So we have Ken that goes on to start his attack, and Rao goes on to just wave his hand, and Gus Ken backwards, having him sliding his feet through the ground. So here's a point where finally Rao is going to get off of his horse and face off against Ken because he is to be more worthy. So now we have the glow between both Ken and Rao here as Ken goes Super Saiyan and has his glowing white eyes. We also have Rao who has his red aura and glowing white eyes. So they end up going on and attacking one another, and bursts of energy keep blasting, and they're up in the air, they're everywhere, they're like freaking like every bit of this battle is really very chaotic. We see Rao cuts on his face. We go on to see uh, Ken's arm ending up getting bloody. Rao's arm ends up getting bloody. Uh, the further and further we see this battle, Rao thrusts Ken into the ground. We're seeing a hole further and further cave in. The further that Rao is thrusting Ken into the ground, doing a big old thrust, giving a good old 1-2 thrust. Anyways, the further and further this battle continues, we're seeing skyscrapers that are just they can't hold um, the weight of this battle occurring, so they're freaking falling over. Uh, the more that these two punch one another in the face and continue to strike one another and fall over, we finally get to the point where Lin appears to Rao and is to convince him that they cannot keep fighting the way they are. And Lin goes on to finally convince Rao for them to completely stop fighting. Because if anything, Ken is to go on and need to be alive. Uh, Ken needs to go on and be alive for the Earth's future. And if anything, again, uh, Lin is to go on, and I think the way she is to talk is to be fairly similar to uh, how that mentor had talked to him before, uh, about true value and everything along those lines. And so Lin convinces Rao to stop. And so Rao goes on to state, it's like, well, then if anything, go on and take care of Ken's wounds, because I'm sure he'll need it. And if anything, if he goes on and if he is to find me and be looking for me, like I'll go on and I'll be paying my respects at a grave. And so Rao goes on and he walks off here, and we realize that the fighting has finally stopped. Which was a kind of a crappy ending, but logically, like, these people were going to go on and fight forever because they were the only two left. So the world could have, like I said, the world could have exploded because of this fighting happening. So the next thing we go on and see after this is all to end here is kind of Lynn and Bart kind of walking off in the sunset, and they're talking about how now uh, Ken's mission is to just go on and try to find where Julia is. And once they're going on and walking on, they all of a sudden notice upon the ground that there is a number of flowers that have all sprouted, and they're all excited about that. We then turn to then see Ken. Ken is to go on and be walking through this desert in this desert storm. And the further and further Ken walks, he all of a sudden notices these trees. He all of a sudden notices this forest. And further and further Ken goes through the forest, he starts to see what looks like a ghost of Julia that keeps appearing and then disappearing. She goes through this forest and does all these things. Ken tries to get to her, and really that's just how the movie ends, with supposedly Ken and Julia just being into this forest together. Whether Julia is to be some kind of a ghost of some kind or whatever, still, like, she is to go on and be there, and so is he. So that's how they wrap up this film in a very weird and interesting, unique kind of a way. So I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Anything else? Yeah, like that's all I could really just like. There wasn't much for me to go on it, and I wish there was more profound things that I could have gone on and said during the spoiler parts of this. I really just kind of broke down this in a severely vague way. Also, even when I got to the spoilers of it all, I just kind of described it and just kind of talked about my feel. There were slivers of things that just it sounded good, but just probably wasn't good enough. So I apologize for this review. That's probably the reason why people can go on and not find these as interesting, just based on the way in which that I'm kind of reflecting on how I was to just talk about these. But uh, if anything, I hope that people will go on and find bits of content and check them out anyways, and be able to have at least something to watch in the future. That's all that really matters. That people are go on and just find content and hopefully enjoy it, and hopefully have their own opinions upon it as well. And let me know in the comments below. But either way, um, thank you for going on and watching this. However, you were going to go on and do so. If you watched it for 20 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever, clicked off, still, at least you did in some ways help out this channel, and I do appreciate it. So, with that said, hopefully we'll go on and we'll get some more interesting content in the future. With that said, bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.